The perfect heart knitting pattern. Hi everyone, my name is Norman. I run the blog nimbleneedles.com and today's video is all about knitting the perfect little love heart. Valentine's Day is very close and this could be the perfect little gift. I'll show you how I knit this pattern step by step and you can follow along. This heart is knitted in the round on double pointed needles to get this nice puffy and seamless shape. It takes me about 1 hour to knit one heart, so let's dive right into it. To knit this heart you will need scraps of red yarn and double pointed knitting needles matching the weight of your yarn. I'm using 2mm carbons needles and this is some Wollmeise sock yarn. But quite honestly, you could also knit this heart with super chunky yarn and it probably would turn out as big as a pillow. You will also need scissors and a tapestry needle, some toy stuffing and 2 stitch holders or 2 spare needles or anything where you can put a couple of stitches on hold. I'll put links to all of these materials in the description below. You will also find a link to the pattern. It's entirely for free and it contains the step-by-step written instructions. This is important because I will not record every single stitch I knit. I want to keep this video as short as possible. And once you got all these materials, we are ready to start knitting. Start by casting on 9 stitches, leaving a tail of around 6 inches for weaving in later on, and then distribute those 9 stitches to 3 needles. I usually knit with 4 needles, but as I start with so few stitches, I think it's a bit easier with 3 needles. And then join these 3 9 stitches in the round. So I always do it by slipping 1 stitch back to the last needle and then passing that last stitch over the first and slipping that back to the left needle and pulling on the tail. And then simply knit across 1 row. This will be incredibly fiddly, I know, and even if you are an experienced knitter, this is quite normal that this round is a bit harder, so there's nothing wrong if this is a bit slower. So knit across 1 row, 1 row, one row, and then we need to increase. If this is a bit too fiddly for you, if this is too fiddly, you can also cast on 12 stitches and knit across 3 rounds. If you just can't make it work. The difference will be quite minor. Still, this video is about knitting the perfect heart knitting pattern, so I feel I don't want to present you with too many shortcuts. And then in the second round, it's knit 1 KLL, knit 2 KRL 2 times. I'll link you my video up in here and in the description below about how to knit KLL. So it's knit 1 and then you need to knit 1 KLL, then you knit 2 stitches, and then you need to knit 1 KRL, which will be on the next needle. So you need to knit 1 KRL, so pick up that stitch and knit it, and then we need to repeat all over again. So knit 2 KLL, knit 2, and then knit a KRL into that last stitch, and now you should have altogether 12 stitches on your needle. And then you need to knit across 2 more rows, so 2 more rows. And I actually switch to knitting with 4 needles from here because I feel this is much more comfortable, and I feel it has neater results. And for the 4th row, the repeat is knit 1 KLL, knit 4 KRL, knit 1. So knit 1, then KLL, and then knit 4, 1, 2. One, 2. And then we need to knit a KRL into that stitch here. So lift that loop and KRL and knit 1, and then we need to repeat this all over again. So knit 1, KLL, knit 4, 1, 2, 3 and 4, and KRL one more time. And then you need to knit across 2 more times. But before, let's take a little look at our heart here. So what we are doing here, we have 4 gaps, 1, 2, 3, 4 gaps. And here along these 2 gaps opposing each other, you will increase all the way to the top. So here there are no increases, just on the side. So you will always increase just around these 2 gaps. And what you can do is you can use a little stitch marker and place it here, so you will always know where your little row starts and where you need to place the increases. And from here you need to knit across those 16 stitches 2 more rows, and then basically repeat these 2 rows over and over again until you have 28 stitches. So knit 2 rows, then increase with KRL and KLL, and so on until you have 28 stitches. So I increased to 28 stitches, and from here you will only have to knit 1 row in between the increased rows. Before it was 2, but now only 1. And I also quickly wanted to use this opportunity to address 2 very common problems. But before, I really love shooting these videos, but I need your support. So why don't you give me a thumbs up right now, leave a nice comment, or even subscribe to my channel. And here are the 2 tips. I really recommend knitting this pattern on 4 needles. I mean, I don't understand why some people knit with 3 needles to begin with, but setting that aside, if you knit with 4 needles, you can space out the increases in a way it's always 1 knit stitch before and after this gap and this gap. If you're knitting, and that's really easy to remember, especially if you place a stitch holder here. And if you're knitting with 3 needles, then 1 increase will be somewhere in the middle, and this is bound to lead to mistakes. At least from experience, I get this question so often. And the second thing I want to address is, so many people seem to be confused about knitting the KLL. A KLL is always knit into the same stitch. So here, so if your pattern says knit 1 KLL, knit 1, then you knit this stitch and you place the KLL into the same stitch and not into the next stitch. I really don't know why so many knitters have problems with exactly that, but you know, I'm not even joking. I get this question like every second day. So if you are one of those people, kindly comment below and tell me, because I really want to understand it. I finished increasing to 40 stitches, and if you look very closely at your work in progress, you can already see the little bottom of your heart. And what we will have to do now is we will need to separate the two halves here. And first we'll knit the right lobe and then the second lobe. So we need to put those 20 stitches here on a stitch holder, or in my case I'm using safety pins, but you could also use a spare circular needle. And once you secured those stitches, distribute the remaining stitches to 4 needles. So this means 5 stitches on each needle, 5 stitches. And like I said, if you have spare double pointed needles, you can also join in those, but I feel they kind of tend to get in the way, so it is a bit harder to knit. And then you need to knit across one row. So knit across one row of knit stitches. But when you come to the gap, so let me get there quickly. And then when you come to the gap, just knit across, but keep a really high tension. So knit across, but tug on that tail so you close the gap. Just like that, and knit across. There's no special technique involved, just knit across and then finish that row. And in the next round, we will increase just the way we did before. So it's knit 1 KLL and then knit 8. So knit 1, then KLL, find that loop, lift it and knit, and then knit 8, and then KRL and knit 1, and then repeat one more time. So it's exactly the same. So just like before, it's always the KLL and KRL before one stitch before the edge. And we need to increase to altogether 28 stitches with one knit row in between. So after you increase to 24 stitches, knit one row and then increase to 28 stitches and knit another row. And I'll see you there. So I increased to 28 stitches and knit across 2 more rows, and from here we need to start decreasing with SSK and knit 2 together. So it's SSK, knit 10, knit 2 together and repeat, and we'll quickly knit 1 row together. So we start with an SSK, so slip, slip, knit, and knit them together. And then you knit across, let me get these needles out of the way, and then knit 10, and then knit 2 together. And we will decrease until there are only 8 stitches left. So knit 2 together these last 2 stitches, knit 2 together, and then repeat. And once you finish that decreased round, you need to knit across 2 more rounds, and then continue decreasing until you have only 8 stitches left. But be careful, the knit rows in between, they change, so kindly check the pattern. And I'll see you once I decrease to altogether 8 stitches. So I'm almost done, and I only need to knit that last knit 2 together. And as you can see in the last row, I distribute the stitches to 2 needles as I go, because I feel if you only have 2 stitches left on, this is a bit tighter. If you have only 2 stitches left on the needle, they're really easy to slip off. So that's what I do. And from here, you can simply cut the tail, or the working yarn, sorry, leaving a tail of maybe 6 inches, and then pick up a tapestry needle. And then we will go through the stitches one by one to secure them. So I thread my tail on a tapestry needle, and then let me get this in focus. And then I go through the remaining stitches one by one. So one stitch, and then there's the second and the third. And I do the same on the other side. So I pull the yarn through those 8 stitches like so. And then I do the same on the other side. 1, 2, 3, 4. And here is the working yarn. So, and then I simply pull tight, and this closes the hole at the top. And then I sew over once, so I go through all the individual stitches one more time. So like this, like this. And then weave in the tail on the inside. Really, I mean, this don't turn this into rocket science, just weave it in casually. Just weave it in any way you like, but you might as well just tie a little knot and then leave the tail dangling there. No one is ever going to see the inside of this heart, so just don't overdo it. So now that we finished knitting the first lobe of the heart, we need to finish the second one. So distribute the remaining 20 stitches to 4 double pointed needles. So I slipped all stitches to the 4 needles, again 5 stitches each needle, and then you need to join in the yarn one more time. Do so here on the outside, and then simply knit across. And you, simply knit across one row, and we are basically repeating the instructions here on the right lobe as well. There's just one big difference, and that's the first round here. When you reach the gap, you need to slip the last stitch before the gap. So let me get there quickly. You need to slip that stitch here, and then you need to pick up one loop here from the gap and slip that to your needle, left needle, and knit it together. Knit those 2 stitches together, and this will prevent a gap from forming here. You don't want that. You want a nice, let me show you, you want a nice clean heart here, and so you need to pick up that one stitch. And here on the other side of the gap, you need to pick up one stitch as well and knit that together through the back loop. I mean, you can try to knit an SSK as well, but probably this will be a bit more complicated. So knit that through the back loop and then continue knitting or finishing that one round, and then you increase 2 times, and then you start with the increases just the way we did before. So let me finish that row, or round rather. So I finished increasing to 24 stitches, and now weave in that tail here. You can basically just tie a little knot here, but if you want to go the extra mile, you can of course weave it in properly. But they're really, I mean, no one is ever going to see the inside of this, so I don't think you need to overdo it. And then simply cut it away. I leave a little bit dangling down, that's just fine. When you are very close to the end, meaning you have only about 16 or 20 stitches left, you need to stuff the heart. So take some toy stuffing and stuff your little heart one at a time and distribute it into that lobe and all the way to the bottom. Go in one little bit of stuffing at a time, and then you need to overstuff it a tiny bit because this lobe here isn't finished yet. But what I do, instead of trying to squeeze in a bit of stuffing through here or here when you're finished, I just overstuff it, and then I go in with a crochet hook and distribute it evenly. So I really stuff it, and I mean this stuffing is boils down to personal preferences, how really, if you want it a bit softer or really fluffy and puffy, up to you. I really stuff in quite a bit of it. And like I said, you can use a crochet hook to distribute the stuffing inside. And that's the way I do it. And once you're satisfied, you just continue knitting those last rounds. Now I finished knitting this lobe and I already pulled my tail through the stitches, and now you can simply pull tight. The only problem is you can't weave in the tail on the inside. So what I do is, again, I go through all the individual stitches one more time. So this really secures that end. And then what you can do is, here you can go in between, well, let me show you. You can go in between one of these ribs here and then simply tie a little knot here, a little knot, and then hide the tail here on the inside. That's how I do it. And then this knot here won't be visible at all, and it's still kind of secure. Just make sure that you don't pull too tight, because this will mess up your heart shape. And then simply cut the tail. And then once you closed this little hole as well, you can pick your crochet hook and then go in and simply pull a bit of stuffing up. Remember, that's why I showed you to overstuff it. But you can also try to massage your little heart a bit and distribute the stuffing evenly. And once you are satisfied, you need to close that hole as well. You can, if you want, stuff in a bit with the end of a pen or a crochet hook. You can stuff in a bit of extra stuffing here. So in case you're not satisfied, you can stuff in a bit here. Or you can remove some if you think, this was a bit too much. You can remove something. I think the Egyptians used hooks to pull out the brain, whatever. I don't know, why do I have this kind of association here? So, but once you're satisfied, and I am, you thread the tail on a tapestry needle again. And to close the gap here at the bottom, go through each and every single cast on stitch like this. So go all the way around, 8 stitches. Remember, we cast on 8 stitches, so go through all of these 8 stitches, and then you can simply pull tight, and this will give a nice pointy little tip. Oh, here's a bit of stuffing, you can remove that. And then once again, you can tie a little knot here around one of the ribs. Or what you can also do is you can try to go through the edge here. It doesn't do whatever you feel is better for you. I tie a knot. I mean, normally I don't tie knots, but in this case, this heart isn't going to be exposed to all that much wear and tear. And then simply go through. Remember, don't pull tight, otherwise you will mess up the shape. And then simply cut the tail. And that's it. You finished this heart knitting pattern. Congratulations. Last but not least, I really want you to know that you can get creative with the size and the type of yarn you could possibly use for this pattern. You don't need to knit this on 2mm needles. It's just my preferred knitting needle size. And you can also try to get creative with the stitch pattern, maybe a seed stitch. I think that could look fantastic. And one idea I think is really nice is you could embroider the initials on this little heart. I think this would be a really fun idea for Valentine's Day. Anyway, I really hope you enjoyed knitting along with me. Please give me a big thumbs up if you liked this video, comment with your feedback and of course your questions if you have any, and consider subscribing to my channel in case you don't want to miss any new videos. Happy knitting and enjoy the rest of your day!